Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Sudra Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace of Vaichanana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Sudra Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grandara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakti Go Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Stayudle Shmati Bhaktivedanta Gauravani Pachalini Nivishesha Shunyavari Vasyacharesh. There's a beautiful place near Kusum Sarovara in Vrindavan, and that's where Uddhava eternally resides as a creeper. But there's also the spot where when he came to Vrindavan, he was giving Bhagavatam class to all the residents of Vrindavan after Krishna left. And during that class, the residents started disappearing, going back to Godhead. So that just reminded me of that. And I started giving class and everyone walked out the door. Not exactly the same, I think. I guess. Start a Bhagavatam class and they start leaving. So 5 of you are, between now and 8 o'clock, you're probably all gone, right? See what happens. So this morning's class is 7th Canto, 6th chapter, text 24. I'll try to follow in Amogalila's footsteps after that very scholarly presentation yesterday. Very nice class. So here we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sohridam Bhavam Asuram Unmuchya Yaya Tushyati Aroksajaha Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sohridam Bhavam Asuram Unmuchya Yatu Shatyadhoksajaha Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Anyone like to chant? Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kurutu Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Tayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam Bhavamasuram Unmuchya Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha. Anyone?
Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam
Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam
Bhavam Asuram Unmuchya
Bhavamasuram Unmuchya
Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha.
Yayatu Shatyadhoksajaha.
Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Sorry, go ahead, Prabhu.
No, go ahead, Dhanabri Mataji.
Thank you. Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Tasmat Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Dayam Kuruta Saurudam
Dayam Kuruta Sauhridam
Bhavam Asuram Unmuchya
bhavamasuram unmucha
Yayatushyatyadhokshajaha
yatushatyaroksajaha
Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu
tasmad sarveshu bhuteshu
dayam kuruta soridam
dayam kuruta sauhridam
pavam asuram unmuchya
bhavamasuram unmucha
Yayatushati adhokshajaha.
yayatushatyaroksajaha. Synonyms: tasmat, therefore, sarveshu, to all, bhuteshu, living entities, dayam, mercy, kuruta, show, sauhridam, friendliness, bhavam, the attitude. Some people say you have to have a good bhavam, you gotta have a good attitude, right? Asuram, of the demons who separate friends and enemies. Unmuchya, giving up. Yaya, by which tushyati is satisfied. Adhoksajaha, the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the perception of the senses. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, my dear young friends, born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied, giving up all your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chashmi tatvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of the demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in his service, in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 18:69. Na cha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priya krittamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and his supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes a dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is Bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yari deke tara kahe Krishna upadesh. Chaitanya Charitamrita Manja 7:128. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktaram Jagdatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Surhidam Sarvabhutanam Gyatvamam Shantam Richati 529 Bhagavad Gita. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord. That he is the supreme enjoyer, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that he is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word surhidam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord Vishnu is situated in the core of everyone's heart, every body is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Darida Narayan. If Narayan lives in the house of a Darija, a poor man, this does not mean that Narayan becomes poor. He lives everywhere, in the house of the poor and those of the rich, but in all circumstances he remains Narayan. To think that he becomes either poor or rich is a material calculation. He is always Shad Aishwarya Purna, full in 6 opulences in all circumstances. Om Gyanantimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Minitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shvapadandikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakti Barinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhashta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So by your prayers and good wishes, I'll try to say a few things. First thing I'd like to say is, could you open that door a little bit? There's a little air in here. It's good to be back. I hope no one missed me. So, translation. This tasmad means, it says therefore, so it's a wind-up. Therefore. So, from what was previously said, therefore. Okay? We have no one else to cook the offering. Therefore, you're going to cook the offering. Okay? Like that. So, therefore, you're going to cook the offering because we don't have anyone else. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, therefore, my dear friends, born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. So this verse and the next few verses are the conclusion of his preaching to his classmates, his friends. So this word adhoksaja, the first few lines of the purport are referring to that. Adhoksaja means the Lord who is beyond the perception of the senses. And Krishna is saying, Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavanyas chashmi tattvataha. The only way to understand Krishna, who is beyond the purview of the senses, is by devotional service. It's a descending process. In other words, Krishna has to reveal himself to the conditioned soul. There's no way by cultivation of knowledge and piety and all these different things one can actually understand Krishna tattvata in truth. It just can't be done. I guess it's a previous verse. It must have been in here because I was reading in a purport or one of the verses how Krishna, the Lord, is covered. He's behind a curtain. Yogamaya samabhritaha. There's a curtain there, and that's the curtain of material energy. And it's not that Krishna's hiding, it's just that we went on the other side of the curtain. We went around the other side of the curtain. Krishna didn't go, you can't see me. We went around and said, we closed the curtain on Krishna. That's what happened. We closed the curtain. Krishna saying, what happened? Don't you want to see me anymore? So that curtain, what is that curtain? Yoga Maya, that's the curtain of material energy, Maya. And the advice given here by Prahlad Maharaj, it says, ultimately instructed his class friends that you have to take up devotional service if you want to know Krishna, if you want to become self-realized or enlightened in the highest level. And even in devotional service, he's saying, accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada says in the purport here, it's the best service to the Lord. And he says Krishna is immediately, that's one word, extremely satisfied. You can say, someone's eventually satisfied with what you're doing, but is immediately extremely satisfied. That's how dear, and Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, this na cha tasmin manusheshu kaschin mea priya kritamaha. There's no one, priya means dear, krita means no one more dear. The dearest person in this world is one who's trying to give everyone Krishna consciousness. And such a devotee is recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you're a soldier in the war. Who gets all the medals? The guy peeling potatoes in the kitchen? Who gets the medals? I'm asking you, who gets the medals? In a war, who gets all the medals? Where you have to be? Front lines. You have to be risking a lot, and you get medals. You know who came up with the whole thing with medals for the most part? Napoleon. He said, it's an amazing thing that men will die just to have medals pinned on their chest. So he was one who really accelerated the giving of medals to soldiers whenever they did something like that. So, and it is pretty risky on the front line, isn't it? Bullets flying all over the place, and you're risking so much to be out on the front line. So Kṛṣṇa recognizes that. He recognizes that one's taking a risk to preach Krishna consciousness. And what is that risk? It's not easy. And you have to deal with conditioned souls, as it said here, without any discrimination. So we like to discriminate. And it's interesting, Prabhupada, in the word for word, this asuram, one who separates friends and enemies. You're always calculating, oh, this is a friend, this is an enemy, this is going to be okay. I don't know about this one. But the devotee is, just like Krishna, samaham sarvabhuteshu. The devotee is equal to all living entities, sees everyone as spirit, soul, and tries to help people on that level. And that's quite unique in this world. Usually we help people who are like us. That's a consideration, right? We help people who are like us. Just like charity usually means other human beings, right? Usually that's where the money goes. Our first concern is family. Then another concern is our community, maybe our nation, or humankind, humanity, right? It's rare that you have people who are concerned about other living entities that are suffering. And of course, that concern has to do with how they affect our sense gratification. Did I bring that up in class about deep ecology yet? I read that article. Did you read that article? It was in Bhakti or something, or ISKCON. Did I bring that up? Does it ring a bell? Deep ecology? It's an article about what's called deep ecology. That ancient cultures, their understanding of ecology and the environment was that human beings were just a little part of it. And there's a whole big picture. And you take all of that into consideration. But it wasn't until Christianity and different groups like that started putting human beings at the top of the pile that in our modern day, ecology has to do with this world around us and maintaining it very nicely for our sense gratification, human beings. We're the first people to be considered in our decisions about even the environment. Why do we want to make sure the water is clean and the air is clean and everyone has an electric vehicle and all this? It's so we can all, as human beings, enjoy our sense gratification, even at the expense of others. So it's not very deep. So this term deep ecology was previously understood that you have to take in consideration all the living entities, and we're just a small part of that. So where did I get off on that one as far as doing good to others? A devotee sees everyone as spirit soul, so it's universal kindness to all living entities. And it says here, it does his best, sincerely tries to spread the Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord. This is what Bhakti is, without discrimination between friends and enemies. So a person who has such a vision and is always working very hard to push on Krishna consciousness and bring souls back home back to Godhead, that's very, very dear to Krishna. That's very dear to Krishna. It says that sometimes there's a criticism that spiritual people have their head in the clouds. They're always concerned about the next life or heaven or something like that. But actually the Krishna conscious view is that our consciousness is projected toward going back home back to Godhead. But while we're in this world, we see it as Krishna's property, and we do everything we possibly can for the peace and prosperity of this world, which means helping other people become Krishna consciousness. Because the devotee doesn't separate this material world from Krishna. So while we're here, it's Krishna's world. We are serving Krishna by helping other people become Krishna conscious. Our goal is param padam, but while we're here, we have some work to do. And that's becoming Krishna conscious and helping others become Krishna conscious. So, let's see, I was going to bring up this Daya mercy. It's interesting, there's a devotee named Adhoksaja. He was our guide in Vrindavan. And he told us, we're discussing different things, and he said actually there's 3 symptoms of a Vaishnav from which all the other 26 qualities come from. Do you want to know what those 3 are? Yes. Okay, thank you. Got a verbal over here. So he said the first one, that's how good my memory is. The first one. No, here it is. Let's back it up here. Self-respect. First quality is having some self-respect. If you have no self-respect, what kind of person are you as far as your other good qualities in life? First one is self-respect. Second one is patience. And the third one is dayam, being very, very kind to all living entities. And that kindness, of course, is not a sentimental thing, but giving people Krishna consciousness, seeing that everyone's suffering in this material world. So he said these 3 qualities, self-respect, patience, and jiva doi, showing kindness to the jivas. This is the source. These are the 3 main qualities of a Vaishnava from which the others all come. I know there's different analysis of that list, but I thought that was quite a telling list, whoever wrote it, those 3 qualities that we have to emulate, something to meditate on. Like that, self-respect, patience, and jiva doi. And you see all the problems in the world is because people don't have these 3 qualities, right? You see something go wrong, you say, well, that person didn't have any self-respect, or that person wasn't very patient, didn't wait, or let alone showing compassion and kindness to other living entities. So, on one hand, all the problems of this material world and human society and its effect on the world can be traced to a lack of these 3 qualities. So it's something to meditate on. And, of course, this is quoted here in the purport, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to, is it Kurma? The Brahmin Kurma. He was all fired up, wanted to go just leave everything and go off with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm out of here. I've had with all this household stuff. I'm leaving. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, sure, come on. Did he say that? He said, no, you stay. In that purport, it's easy. Interesting. Prabhupada says in Kali Yuga, not only do people not know how to be a brahmachari, they don't even know how to be a grihasta. No one knows how to do anything. We're very, very fallen. So he said, no, you just stay. You just stay and preach Krishna consciousness to everyone. Whoever you meet, like that, instruct them, about Krishna and so on. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. And he said, if you do that, you'll always feel my presence. You'll always feel my presence. So that's what this verse here. This is the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction to all the devotees. He says it's the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why is that? It's because Krishna reveals himself to such a devotee. Because the devotee, as a preacher, is always calling out to Krishna. I asked Niranjana Maharaj, I had a good fortune of having lunch with him, and old friends, old brahmachari buddies. You get brahmachari buddies, right? So when Balaram takes sannyas, and you go see him after 20, 30 years, you remember our days in the ashram? You used to yell at me all the time? He says, you can like that. So whatever it is, it makes a very close bond. So we were brahmacharis together. And I asked him about sannyas and how sannyasis think and so on. But he was making this point that he always feeling, one thing he said was, never want to get married. Just never want to get married. Just not into that. But he also said there's always feeling Krishna's presence and always feeling the presence of one's spiritual master. That's an essential quality of a sannyasi, but of all devotees. So one's always feeling that. And of course, when you're preaching, Krishna reciprocates, because you need to feel the presence of Guru and Krishna to keep pushing on. It's like Prabhupada said, there was never a moment when I did not feel Krishna, but also he mentioned about his spiritual master, when he was criticized by his godbrothers, about how big the project in Mayapur was in comparison to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's Samadhi and so on. And the fact that he drove past that and went to Mayapur and didn't stop. And he said, they don't understand, I'm always feeling my spiritual master's presence at every single moment. So this is the symptom of an advanced devotee. The preacher is always, Krishna very kindly reveals himself to such a devotee, because a devotee needs that for strength and so on to push on Krishna consciousness. And in this Bhoktadam Jagnatapasam, Prabhupada says, one's expected as a devotee to understand these three formulas and understand these truths and preach them to everyone. People looking for peace in the world today, right? How many hotspots are there in the world today? There's some really big hotspots. There's some burn holes, right, in the world today as far as war and you name it. And Maharaj is telling us all kinds of stories you're never going to see in the news, and it's in our newspaper too, about devotees, what they're going through there, like that, in that country. Unbelievable suffering. So why is this all going on? Well, the peace formula is here. Bhoktadam Jagatapasam, that the Supreme Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the Lord of everything, and he's a dearmost friend of all living entities. So to the extent we are forgetful of this, there's never any peace in the world or tranquility, because everyone's always fighting over everything. Like that I'm the enjoyer, I'm the owner, even I'm the best friend. Listen to me. My advice, listen to me. Right? So this is the big problem. But actually Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He is the supreme Lord, proprietor of everything, and he's our dearmost friend. So the Prabhupada goes into that. The sauhridam. See, the surhridam, sarvabhutanam, means what's hrida? Hrida. You know what that means in Sanskrit? The heart. Suhrida. Someone who's very dear to your heart. Like that. So Krishna, suhrit means the best friend. There's different kinds of friends. There's someone who's a casual friend. Sometimes they call him a Haribol Prabhu. A Haribol Prabhu. Haribol Prabhu. I mean, it's Haribol Prabhu. But that's kind of like here, someone you're friendly to, but it's not very, very deep. I forget, there's Mitra, Surhit, there's another one too. It's there in the Bhagavad Gita in that one verse. And but Surhit is the highest level, because when someone's very dear to your heart, and you're very dear to their heart, and they have your ultimate welfare, concern in their heart. So Krishna is Surhit Sarvabhutanam. Now, Prahlad Maharaj is telling his friends they should become Sohridam, very friendly on the highest level to all living entities. In other words, be very concerned about their true happiness in life. And Prabhupada says that people in general are ignorant of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, if you really want to become their well-wisher, that's Surhit. Then you got to give them Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, you're just a Haribol Prabhu. Not even that, So, becoming friendly towards all living entities is a quality of a devotee. And we really can't become friendly to all living entities unless we are Krishna conscious. Because otherwise it's motivated. It's motivated. As we said earlier, we'll pick friends and enemies. Right? We draw lines. We draw lines. I like people in California. I like people who are Republicans. I like people Democrats. I like people who are this. Don't like people. Because if you like one kind of person, it means you don't like the other kind of person, right? I get along with these people. I don't get along with those people. So, and all that has to do with what makes me comfortable in this material world. So one can't be a true well-wishing, what is the word I'm trying to think of? Self-interest, right? Self-interest. We have our own self-interest. But how about Krishna's interest? So when we come up to the point of having Krishna's interest as being more important than my self-interest, then we can actually be Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, just as Krishna. And Prabhupada ends the purport about this Darida Narayan. I was just listening to tape the other day, I think Nectar Devotion series, where Prabhupada's saying this is such an insult to Krishna. Darija Narayan, poor Narayan. Name someone very wealthy that you know of. Just know, you know of them. Then maybe not your child. Oh yeah, I was just thinking of him also, okay? So if you went up to him and said, you're a lazy, poor person. You're worth nothing. Like that. You have no money, you're poor, you're poverty-stricken. He look at you like, what are you talking about? So to say Darija Narayan is such an insult. How can Narayan ever be Darija? So this is because in the beginning Prabhupada was talking about Adhoksaja, the Supreme Lord is beyond material calculation. So and Prabhupada on the purport goes, some yogi, and they said Vivekananda, kind of under his breath, came up with this idea, that Darija Narayan, even the poor person, they're Narayan too, like that. But it's just an insult. Narayan is not poor, he's not rich, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sad Aishwarya Purna. So this is an insult, Prabhupada said, to the Supreme Lord. Where is this coming from? Like that. So that we should be, his whole idea was that you should be very kind to poor people, seeing that they're all Narayan. What a bogus idea. Completely bogus idea. You're kind to all living entities, rich and poor, because they're all eternal servants of the Lord. Like that. So he became very popular amongst the poor people. That people should worship them as Narayan. Like that. He's the husband of the goddess of fortune. So let me just see if I wanted to catch anything else here. And it's amazing how fearless Prahlad Maharaj is. Just stands up in his class with all these demoniac friends and just starts preaching Krishna consciousness. He's an example of this. He didn't think, these guys are not going to like what I have to hear. They're all little demons, He just started preaching. And he was so Krishna conscious, this is brought up in an earlier verse, he was so Krishna conscious that it affected their heart. That's the point of Krishna consciousness. The more Krishna conscious we are, it touches the soul. There are so many examples in the present day also. People are very, very fallen, and they meet devotees, and somehow their heart changes. Because they're just unbelievable. They just change. They just change like that. I mean, here in our community, I was just thinking of Mrs. Devori, but Mr. Devori, he met Prabhupada. And you can hear the tape. It's a BBT tape. It says Los Angeles, but it's San Diego. And the story is that he was arguing, South Indian, and he was arguing for a long, long time with Prabhupada. I guess we were at the house or at the temple there, 3rd Avenue. Just arguing and arguing and arguing, all these arguments. And Prabhupada just kept smashing him and smashing. And then finally, late in the evening, he just fell down at Prabhupada's feet like Dandavats and surrendered to him. Prabhupada finally got through to him like that. But he's making all these arguments. Just from that moment on, they became our whole family surrendered to Krishna, Prabhupada's movement. So the great devotees, they can do that. They have that potency like that. So are there any questions or comments on any of the points in this verse or purport? Mum's the word? Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you please give some examples of the relationship between self-respect and Krishna consciousness?
Well, they're synonymous. Now, one thing, obvious, you have to know what the self is. That's another thing. But the material nature is the soul in the material world is in a very embarrassing situation. If you think of it for a moment that we're eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and here we are, in this bag of bones and stool and urine and pus and blood, we're suffering the different whips of material nature, birth, death, disease, and old age. What's gone on? What's happened? You know, just like you see someone you knew was doing really well, then after a few years you meet them and they're strung out on drugs and this and that, just horrible situation. Everything's going wrong. And they think everything's fine. They're happy with that. You say, well, don't you have any self-respect? You know. So the self is an eternal, blissful servant of Krishna. And somehow or other, we just accept all of this. We've lost our self-respect as an eternal servant of Krishna. That's one level. Then even on the material level, one should have some self-respect. And out of that self-respect, one develops good qualities. You can say in the mode of goodness, one is kind and merciful and clean and all those good qualities, because one has some self-respect. In fact, they say, people have different problems. Maybe some kind of addiction, or maybe different kinds of addictions or problems and so on. And they always say the turning point to get away from that, whatever it might be, the negative habits and so on, you know what the turning point is? Self-respect. If you don't have any self-respect, doesn't matter what other people say or this or that, or until you have enough self-respect, you don't change. You can't ever get over that debilitating habit that you developed. As soon as you have self-respect, then it becomes a lot easier and things start happening. So, this is one of the symptoms of ignorance, is self-deception that Lord Brahma created. But when you have self-respect, it means you stand on your own 2 feet, and not that you're perfect, but you have enough respect for yourself, spiritually, materially, to do what's right. Like that. Is that good enough? Will that get you to lunch? Get you to noon. Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna?
Well, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Como está?
Estou bem, obrigado. E o senhor?
You have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But I can wait if a temple room devotee would like to go first.
Well, you're already with us, so speak away.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. Dharmasetu Prabhu, you're most kind, Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, the first sentence of the purport is saying that we can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. So based on this quote, my question is, why not by speculation, for example? Why only by devotional service can I understand Krishna?
Okay, well,
that is my question.
Okay. Well, anything or anyone, when is it a good idea to just kind of speculate about that person? Someone you don't know, say, well, maybe he's like this, maybe he's like that, and that's not very intelligent. Better you have that person tell them, reveal themselves to you. If you really want to know them, the speculation will get you nowhere. So Krishna, devotional service means Krishna reveals himself. It's very personal. It's very personal. Krishna reveals himself to his devotee. That's the process. People speculate, well, God is an energy. God is a light. God is, this or that, or, there's so much speculation. But Krishna is beyond. That's what adhoksaja means, beyond the ability to speculate. And even, we're tiny little Kali-yugites, but even the great demigods, even Lord Brahma, even Lord Shiva himself says that I don't understand Krishna. Look at that verse by Lord Brahma. He says, others may say they know Krishna, but I don't know Krishna. And this is Lord Brahma, the greatest personality, Jiva, in the material world, in the universe. And he's saying he doesn't understand Krishna. He's not going to speculate. So it's not a very intelligent way to understand anything. So like instead of going to college, you're going to speculate how to be a doctor or a mechanic. Make sure you put that on your wall so people know that. I never went to college. I just speculated about medicine. Would you go to such a doctor?
No, I wouldn't go to such a doctor.
Okay, So Krishna is so kind, he's telling you want to know me? This is exactly how you know me, by rendering the service to my devotees. And I'll reveal myself 100% to you. So, and that's natural. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Oh, can we give Prabhu Sankarshan, right? The microphone for a second. We'll go back and forth. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I just had a comment and a question. Like, I heard a devotee say something kind of similar about those 3 items, but he said, so you should ask yourself these things every day is, it was first one, well, who are you? A servant of Krishna. Who's in your heart? And what is your offering to the movement? And so I thought that was kind of nice, kind of reminded me of that. And the second one is, you're talking about how Prabhupada was always thinking about his guru and all this. When does a disciple, or when does a devotee realize that the Vani and Vapu, which is more kind of important, like the Vani is like the instructions, instead of the actual physical association with the guru or and whatnot?
Well, one thing that Srila Prabhupada talks about Vani being most important is because your Vapu is limited. Okay? I mean, how much personal, Prabhupada mentions that in his life, how much association did he get with personal association with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta? Very, very limited, just a few meetings, right? So, in that sense, the Vani carries more weight because the limitations of Vapu, like that. And the spiritual master is preaching you to carry out the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in that way, it has a lot of weight. And I had the good fortune of having breakfast with Harisari Prabhu in Mayapur. And one question I asked them, I said, for someone like you, who had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada, and we have this Vapu and Vani, I said, for you, which do you default to when something comes up in your Krishna consciousness? Do you immediately think of Prabhupada's instructions, this verse or that verse or purport? And he said, for him, it's the Vapu. Because he said he spent so much time with Prabhupada, and every possible thing that could ever come up in Krishna consciousness, he saw Prabhupada deal with it. So because he had that association, immediately his mind defaults to being with Prabhupada someplace, and Prabhupada addressed that particular issue in Krishna consciousness. So for someone like him, it is the Vapu. So, but Prabhupada brings the first part I made was the Vani for most devotees. That's very significant because the Vapu is very, very limited. Both are very important, but the Vani is very important, essential. Is that helpful? Okay. Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you for wonderful class. My question is, how do we read in the Shastra that everybody's in, Krishna is in everybody's heart and we should treat them equally and all, but how do we, practically sometimes, like you mentioned, that we don't like somebody, or if they are eating whatever, meat or whatever they are doing, we don't like their habits, and it's hard to see in them that Krishna is in their heart, and we cannot be, we have to be so kind and all. How do we practically apply it, and what makes it easier for our mind to think so we can do it, apply it in a...
Trinadapi sunichena torori vasuhishnana. If we're always thinking of ourselves more lower than a blade of grass, more tall than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respects to others, we can get through those. No problem at all, right? No matter who we're in association with, if we feel ourselves to be more like a blade of grass, smaller than that, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer respects to all others, then it's a lot easier to get through that. So just remember that verse by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Shikshastakam. Is that helpful?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
That's what I find. And also, Krishna's testing me. Whenever there's any difficulty, and this is a difficulty, is personality clashing. Oh, Krishna's testing me, how patient I can be, and how, so just see it in that way. My spiritual master and Krishna are testing me. How nice. They're giving me a test, because I need a lot of tests before I can graduate. Imagine how many from first grade, maybe they have tests in kindergarten now. I don't know. But how many tests and exams from 12 years, and then college, and then you have graduate school. All those tests you have to go through before you come out on the other end with some kind of important degree. There's a lot of tests. So the same way between, a person who just walked, who's on the threshold of bhakti all the way to pure devotional service, you gotta expect there's going to be some testing going on. In fact, every moment there's a test. Every day there's a test. So, Krishna's sending me another test, and the more tests we pass, that means the closer we're getting to graduating. So whatever comes our way, happiness or distress, it's a test from Krishna. He just wants to give us another test. Very kind of him.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I like that testing part. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.